The Hypnobirthing Toolkit is a complete hypnobirthing and birth preparation course helping you to go into the birth of your baby with confidence and positivity. It's completely self-paced with pre-recorded videos, presentations, audios, PDFs, plus monthly live classes. It's a more affordable and flexible way to learn hypnobirthing and help you have the positive birth experience you deserve. Follow the link in the description below to begin your positive birth journey today. Hello and welcome to the Bell Mama Hypnobirthing and Positive Birth podcast. My name is Ellie Waddington. I'm a hypnobirthing teacher, antenatal instructor and positive birth coach, and I'm here to help you go into the birth of your baby with a positive mindset. Every week I share my top tips, advice and amazing birth stories to help you go from fearful and anxious about your birth to positive and confident. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and let's get into this episode. Hey gorgeous mama, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am so happy you're here. I am so happy to be here. And I am so proud of you that you are on this journey, that you are taking active, positive steps towards having a more positive birth experience. That's huge. That's massive. And you know what? You should be proud of yourself. You should give yourself a big hug. I'm sending you a big virtual hug through this podcast, through whatever method you are listening to this podcast. I'm sending you a big hug. So celebrate yourself. Celebrate this win that you are taking this step towards having a more positive birth experience. I love you and you should love yourself. Now, my aim throughout this episode, I want you to come away from this episode feeling just 1%, just a tiny little bit more positive about birth. Just a tiny, teeny little bit more positive about birth. If I can achieve that, if you can achieve that, then do you know what? I consider that a win. I consider that something to celebrate. Just a teeny tiny little bit more positive about birth. Because that's what it takes. You know, preparing your mindset, preparing for a positive birth experience, it's like training for a marathon. So if you're not already a runner, you know, you might be a runner, in which case this probably doesn't apply to you. But if you're not already a runner, you could not just do one training session and then rock up tomorrow at the London Marathon and go and run a full marathon. You know, it's really, really unlikely that you would be able to do that. I don't actually know how long it takes to train for a marathon. If you're not already a runner and you need to, you know, do all your training to be able to run a full marathon, I'm assuming it's going to take a pretty long time, probably the best part of a year, if I'm honest. There was one time I did run a 10k and you know what, that was more than enough for me. It took me months to train for that, and that's not really ever something that I wish to repeat. But all I know is that you could not just rock up tomorrow and run a marathon if you're not already a marathon runner. It takes time to train for it. It takes lots and lots and lots of training sessions, and that also takes mindset work. It's not just physical. Running a marathon is also mental. There's lots of preparation. There's your support team. So many things that have to happen in order for you to successfully run a marathon. And that's also what needs to happen with preparing for you, for your positive birth, changing your mindset to go into birth. You are not just going to do one session with a hypnobirthing teacher. You're not just going to read one book. You're not just going to listen to one podcast and suddenly think, yes, I'm over my fears. I can do this. You have to build on it layer by layer. You have to put in so many teeny tiny little bits of training here and there. It needs to be done consistently. And it's also not going to be a linear journey. You know, just like training for a marathon, there are going to be days when you are aching, and you know what? It's probably better that you have a rest day on that day. And just like that, going through the motions of preparing for your positive birth, there are going to be days when you are just not into it. It feels a little bit too overwhelming for you on this day. So do you know what? You take a break. You just go for a walk instead. You do something else, some other form of self-care that's going to serve you, and that's okay. And again, it's just like running a marathon. It's not linear. It's up and down. It's backwards and forwards. It's a roller coaster ride. But do you know what? The more you put in, the more consistent you are, the more likely it is that you are going to be able to do that. You are going to be able to run your marathon. You're going to be able to have your positive birth experience. Now, of course, the main difference between a marathon and birthing your baby is that if you get halfway through your marathon training and you decide, you know what, this isn't for me, this is not lighting me up, this is not bringing me joy, there's probably a bit of a mistake, you can just not do it. You can just decide not to run that marathon. You can decide not to carry on with that training. And you know what? I'm not going to judge you. No one else is going to judge you. You might feel a little bit bad, but ultimately you can just decide not to do it. You can decide this wasn't for you and you can just not do it. But if you are pregnant right now, your baby is coming out one way or another. You have no choice over that matter. You can either stick your head in the sand. You can either continue going through pregnancy just pretending like birth isn't going to happen and just wing it, or you can choose to take control of the situation. You can choose to start building your positive mindset. You can start learning how to advocate yourself. You can start learning about the birth process. And you know what? You, listening to me right there, because you are choosing to listen to this podcast, you have already made that decision. You have decided that you are going to take control of this situation. And for that, I applaud you. Now, today, what we're actually going to be talking about is the concept, the idea, the notion of saying no. By which I mean declining a course of action, declining something that's offered to you, whether that be a sweep, whether that be an induction, whether it be cesarean, whether that be taking blood, being weighed, even going to see a midwife altogether, just declining anything that is recommended to you or that could be offered to you by a medical professional. And this is something that I feel is such an important topic because as a hypnobirthing teacher, I get accused. And do you know what? It's not just me. It's most hypnobirthing teachers. It's most positive birth practitioners. We get accused of telling women to say no. We get told that you are just out there. That's all hypnobirthing is. It's just telling women to say no to inductions, telling women to say no to this, that, and the other. And my response is always the same. I am not telling women to say no. I am telling them they can say no, which is such a massive difference, okay? And it's not dangerous advice. It's not medical advice, because again, this is something else that people say to me frequently on my reels and occasionally in my DMs as well. It's, well, you're not a medical professional. Who are you to be telling women not to do this, that, and the other? Who are you to be giving medical advice? And you're right, I am not a medical professional. I've never pretended to be a medical professional. I've never wanted to be a medical professional. And the advice that I give is not medical advice. The advice that I give to women about bodily autonomy and being able to say no to things is the exact same advice that I give to anyone who is considering doing anything with potentially long-lasting consequences to their body. So if you are thinking about getting a tattoo, you should know the risks and benefits of getting a tattoo. You should do research on the tattoo artist who's going to do that tattoo. You should research the ink they're going to use. You should research the healing process that they recommend. That is a long-lasting consequence, having a tattoo. It's literally a permanent piece of art on your skin. You should know and understand every single thing that's going to happen in that process. And if something doesn't sit right with you, you should be prepared to say no. And this is exactly the same for laser eye surgery, or having a filling at the dentist, or having a massage, or having some physio. If something is happening to your body, if something's being removed from your body, being put into your body, you should know and understand everything to do with that process. And you should be prepared to decline it if it doesn't sit right with you. You should be prepared to decline it if it doesn't feel right. Use your instincts, but also the research and the evidence. If it doesn't stack up and you think, do you know what, I think I'm going to give this a miss, then you should be prepared to say no. And one of the things, particularly as women, but as society in general, we see medical professionals as knowing more about the human body than we do. And that's true, they probably do know more about the human body than we do, absolutely. But they don't know more about your body than you do. Okay, only you are the expert in your body. And I'm going to say that again. I want you to take that in. Only you are the expert in your body. So just because this medical professional is an expert in the human body and medical procedures, which, absolutely fine, You do not have to accept anything being done to your body that you do not want. You do not forfeit bodily autonomy just because you are pregnant. Now, of course, if you are happy to go along with the medical professionals, then that's absolutely fine. Do it. All power to you. I'm not telling you, again, I'm not telling you to say no. I'm telling you that if you want to, you can say no, because we have this idea that if someone is there telling us, do this, do that we have no choice. The amount of women I talk to that say, I had to have an induction because of this. I wasn't allowed to have a home birth because of this. And it really upsets me. It raises my hackles. You always have a choice. You can always say no. And something else people say to me, I really, really want to avoid induction. And my response is always like, okay, the easiest way to avoid induction is to say no. And that's not me being inflammatory. That's usually just to make them stop and think, is induction really something that they want? And what else can they do around that? But you can decline induction. The easiest way to avoid induction is by saying no. But it's not always that simple. And we're going to talk a little bit later on about ways that you can become more happy advocating for yourself, with things that you can start doing now to start preparing for potentially saying no if the time comes. If you do want to say no, you don't want to regret it afterwards. You don't want to think, do you know what, I really wished I hadn't accepted that course of action. I really wanted to say no, but I just wasn't brave enough. So we're going to talk through some strategies and things that you can start doing now to start preparing yourself for that if the time comes. So first off, I just want to talk to you a little bit about why you might want to say no, okay? Because this is a question that I've had on one of my hypnobirthing courses back when I used to run group courses with couples in front of me in this lovely yoga studio I used to run my courses out of. And one time I had a birth partner say, well, why would you want to say no to a medical professional? If you have gone to this medical professional and you've asked for their advice, why would you decline it? Why would you want to say no? You might as well have just not gone to them in the first place. And I completely understand where he was coming from. I completely get that way of thinking. But the example that I tend to use is, okay, so you're right in that I am not a medical professional. I don't know as much as the medical professionals, and I go to them for advice. But that's the same as a plumber, for example. So imagine that I had something wrong with one of my taps in the kitchen, right? I know nothing about plumbing. I'm quite happy to ask a plumber for advice on the plumbing. So imagine this plumber comes into my house, into my kitchen, and they do some looking around and they say, yeah, do you know what? The best thing is that we're just going to remove the taps. It's probably just better that you don't have taps in the kitchen. Now, he's a plumber, he's a professional, and he knows more about plumbing than I do. But do you know what? Not having taps in the kitchen, that just doesn't feel right. That doesn't sit right with me. I just don't understand why you wouldn't have taps in the kitchen. Now, of course, because he is a professional that I've called in for advice, I've probably already paid him for his time to come out to my kitchen to see these leaky taps. My first instinct would be like, oh, well, okay, you're the expert. If you're thinking that we don't need taps in the kitchen anymore, then okay, well, let's just do it. That's not really what I want to do, but okay. Let's just remove the taps. But actually, what I would probably do as an empowered woman who is happy standing up for myself, I'd be like, do you know what? I'm going to get a second opinion. That just doesn't sit right with me. I don't quite understand why we need to remove a tap. So I'm going to ask someone else and see what they think about the taps. And, they might come in and they might say, yeah, that was absolutely the right course of action. We definitely should just remove the taps from your kitchen in this case. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, fair enough. If this is what you guys are saying, then that's fine. But even so, even if that second opinion is to remove taps and I still don't agree with it, I can still say no. I can still say, do you know what? No, I'm going to find someone that's just going to fix these taps, or I'm going to just put up the leaky taps. I don't think that removing the taps is the right course of action. I could decline having those taps removed just because I don't like the colour of the plumber's van if I wanted to. There is no reason to justify why I want to decline having these taps removed from the kitchen. If I want to decline having that course of action, I can. And this is exactly what I mean about going into a medical professional's office and say they recommend that you're going to be induced. They think, okay, you've gone over due dates and now we think that the best course of action is to induce you. Okay, if you want to, you can accept the induction, and that's definitely a course of action, but you might have done some research into it. You might see that actually there are some risks associated with induction that you're not quite happy with. You might want a second opinion. You might want to wait a little bit longer. You might want to see if there are any alternatives to an induction. And those are all absolutely fine. And let's not forget, something else I really want you to remember is that you are not actually obliged to justify your choices. You do not have to go into that medical professional's office and you do not have to say, I'm going to decline the induction because of this, that and the other. This research says blah, 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 so I'm going to decline it. You can just say no. No is a full sentence. If you don't want that induction, you can say no. Or you could say, do you know what, I'd like a second opinion. And if that second opinion comes back the same, yes, we recommend induction in this case, you could say, okay, fair enough, yeah, I'm going to accept the induction. Or you could still say no. It's your body. You can decline or accept anything you want to because you are a grown woman and you can make your own decisions. This is what I really want to get through to you, is that you can accept or decline anything when it comes to your body. Nobody can physically make you do anything when it comes to your body, even when you're pregnant. And unless you are legally sectioned under the Mental Health Act, unless you have deemed to be mentally unfit, nobody can force you to do anything. So something that I teach in the Hypnobirthing Toolkit, which is my online hypnobirthing program, is BRAIN. It's how to make decisions that are right for you. Whenever you are faced with any decision in your pregnancy, whether it's induction, a sweep, monitoring, anything, you use BRAIN, which is benefits, risks, alternatives, intuition, and nothing. And this really helps you just to lay out all those different points, all the things that you have to weigh up to make those decisions that are right for you. And this is one of my favourite parts of the Hypnobirthing Toolkit. This is one of my favourite parts of the course because it is so empowering, helping women to make those decisions and advocate for themselves. I love it. I love it. So saying no, it sounds really easy in principle. It sounds like, okay, you know, just say no. It's very easy for me to sit here and tell you, just say no, just say no, just say no. It's really easy to say no, just decline it. But it really isn't that simple, and I know that, and you know that, and we don't want to get to a point where we are in labour trying to advocate for ourselves and we don't have the confidence. You want to put that in ahead of time, because from childhood, from early childhood, we have been taught, we've been conditioned to unwaveringly obey people in positions of authority, you know, from teachers to policemen to bus drivers to to medical professionals. We're given like rewards and lollipops if we sit still for the injection. You know, we're taught to obey without question, and then that carries on, even though we are now fully grown adults and we can make our own decisions about whether or not to accept this, that and the other. We still have that conditioning from our childhood, and particularly as women. Again, this is a conversation for a different day, but as women, we are people pleasers. We are taught that to be a good girl, we have to do what the doctor tells us. So we hop up on the bed and we accept that vaginal examination. We accept the blood being taken. We accept the induction because that's what the doctor is telling us to do, even when we don't want to do it, even when that doesn't sit right with us. So we have to do a lot of work. We have to really move past that discomfort to be able to put our own comfort ahead of potentially someone else's. So now I'm going to share with you a little strategy for learning how to say no, for getting comfortable with saying no, learning how to advocate for yourself and becoming comfortable with advocating for yourself. And this is essentially practicing saying no in situations that might make you feel uncomfortable but actually don't really matter in the great scheme of things, because not making a decision in the heat of the moment in birth could potentially affect the way that you feel about your birth, and you don't want to be looking back on your birth regretting decisions that you've made or decisions that you didn't make. And so the way that you can become comfortable with that eventually is by practicing with things that don't really mean anything now. So I'll give you an example. Imagine that you go into a restaurant and you put in your order. You order, I don't know, what do you order? Sea bass and vegetables. And then actually when you sit back down, or the waitress has walked away, whatever kind of restaurant this is, you decide that actually you don't want the sea bass anymore, you want a burger and chips. So you go up and you change your order. Now that might be a mild inconvenience for the waitress. It might make you feel really uncomfortable going to cause someone a mild inconvenience, but that's where it starts. You have to get comfortable putting your own comfort ahead of someone else's in that situation. And so let's give you another example. Say you go into a garage. Say you're going to put your car into a garage for some work, and the person there in the garage is saying, yeah, we recommend that we do this, that and the other to your car. So I'm not saying say no here. Obviously, if work needs doing to your car, then you need work doing to your car. But ask them why. Why does this work need doing? What happens if we don't do the work to this car? Really practice asking those questions, asking those uncomfortable questions, rather than just blindly accepting it, which is what we tend to end up doing. So this is what you're going to do from now until the birth of your baby. Get comfortable with questioning the professionals that we would otherwise just blindly go along with. Same thing if you go to the dentist. If your dentist is telling you that you need a filling, okay, so why do I need a filling? What is the process with this filling? Why are you recommending this? Are there any other alternative courses of action? And the more that you practice saying no and questioning professionals, the more comfortable you're going to get with doing that in birth, which is what all this boils down to. We are trying to make you feel more confident, advocating for yourself, asking questions, and saying no when it ultimately matters. Now, if you think that in the moment you're going to really struggle advocating for yourself and, making a decision that's right for you, then have someone in your appointments that's on your side. And obviously the best person for this is going to be your birth partner. Usually your birth partner is going to be your life partner. Usually it's the other parent of the baby. But yeah, someone with you that is on your side, someone that knows your choices, someone that knows what it is that you want out of this appointment. They know what it is you're hoping to decide and what it is that you're trying to get across, and have them with you there. Sometimes having someone who is on your side, someone who is in your corner, that can make you feel a lot more confident in advocating for yourself and saying no, or saying yes, or requesting something when it matters. And so before I sign off, that's almost all for this week. I just want to remind you to be kind to yourself. If you find yourself going into a medical appointment and saying something different, if something different comes out of your mouth than you're thinking in your head, don't be mad at yourself, okay? Don't get frustrated. Don't think yourself weak. Don't call yourself stupid. Don't be unkind to yourself, because you are trying to fight years of conditioning. I mean, to be honest, it's centuries. It's centuries of conditioning of women being told to just say yes, to accept whatever that professional is telling you, that someone else knows best. You are fighting centuries of conditioning, but it starts just one decision at a time. It starts one person at a time, okay? Be kind to yourself and just take this journey one step at a time. That's all you got to do. I'm proud of you. I love you. And I'm so happy that you're here on this journey and that I'm on this journey with you. Now, if you have enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy listening to the podcast, if you wouldn't mind us leaving the podcast a little review, I would be so grateful. And if you have any questions about anything that I've talked about in this episode or any of the other episodes, come and chat with me on Instagram. I love chatting in the DMs. I want to know where you are in your pregnancy journey, what you're struggling with, what you're excited about. Let's have a little chat. Let's get to know each other. Come over to the DMs or send me an email. I love you guys so much, and I cannot wait to talk to you again soon. So until next week, bye!